Welcome to this video on planets and placements in Gemini, or the third house, where the mind moves fast, curiosity runs deep, and connection is everything. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is the sign of communication, learning, and adaptability. The third house mirrors these themes. It governs our voice, our thoughts, how we relate to our immediate world, and how we share ideas. When a planet lands in Gemini, or the third house, its energy becomes quick, expressive, and mentally active. Whether it's the sun lighting up your voice, Venus making your words sweet, or the moon giving emotional depth to your thoughts, this is a placement that needs to speak, listen, and learn. This isn't about deep isolation or abstract theories. It's about the everyday magic of conversation, connection, and curiosity. Planets here are hungry for information and always in motion, constantly picking up insights from people, places, books, or even brief encounters. In this video, we'll explore how each planet expresses itself in Gemini, or the third house, what it means for your communication style, your relationships, your inner world, and what it reveals in a psychic reading or astrology dice roll. Let's begin where all understanding starts, with a question. Today, we step into the lively, curious, and ever-questioning energy of the sun in Gemini, or in the third house. The sun represents your core identity, purpose, and the light you shine into the world. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is the sign of communication, versatility, and mental agility. The third house shares these themes. It governs thought, speech, learning, and how we connect to the world around us. When the sun lands here, the mind becomes the center of gravity. Your purpose is to observe, share, connect, and understand. This placement creates a personality that thrives on movement, not necessarily physical, but mental. You're likely someone who needs stimulation, ideas, conversation, and a chance to express yourself. Curiosity is your fuel. You might be the type who reads 5 books at once, juggles multiple interests, or always seems to be in the middle of a fascinating conversation. In relationships, you're drawn to witty, engaging connections. You need mental chemistry, not just emotional or physical attraction. You tend to keep things light at first. Warmth builds through laughter, shared ideas, and open dialogue. In career, this placement favors writing, speaking, teaching, journalism, marketing, or any field where communication and adaptability are key. You're often the messenger, translator, or bridge between people and ideas. Variety is essential. Too much routine can dull your spark. In health, your nervous system may be sensitive. Mental overstimulation or scattered energy can lead to burnout or anxiety. Grounding routines, physical movement, and time in nature can help center your energy. Financially, you may have multiple income streams or an interest in turning knowledge into profit. You're likely resourceful and quick thinking, though sometimes inconsistent. Developing focus and follow-through can help strengthen your earning power. When the sun in Gemini, or the third house, appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to pay attention to your thoughts and words. Your voice matters. There may be something you need to say, learn, or write. You're being encouraged to stay curious, stay connected, and trust in the power of information and communication. So ask yourself, what am I ready to express? What message or idea is ready to come to life through me? Because the sun in Gemini doesn't shine by staying silent. It shines by speaking, learning, connecting, and keeping the flame of curiosity alive wherever it leads. Today, we explore a placement that's sharp, fast, and endlessly curious. Mercury in Gemini, or in the third house. Mercury is right at home here, as it rules both Gemini and the third house. This is Mercury at its most agile, the communicator, the thinker, the mental explorer. Words are your tools, questions your compass, and information your fuel. With Mercury in this placement, your mind is constantly on the move. You absorb knowledge quickly, often juggling several ideas or conversations at once. You likely have a talent for language, whether that's speaking, writing, teaching, or storytelling. Wit, humour, and wordplay come naturally. Communication isn't just something you do, it's how you experience the world. In everyday life, you're curious, sociable, and always tuned in. You ask great questions, love sharing information, and often act as a connector between people, ideas, or communities. Boredom is your enemy. You need variety and stimulation to feel alive. In career, this placement is brilliant for journalism, media, writing, teaching, sales, or any field that involves fast thinking and flexible communication. You thrive when you're allowed to learn, adapt, and stay mentally engaged. In relationships, you crave mental connection. Conversation is your love language. You're drawn to people who can keep up with your thoughts and keep you laughing. Emotional depth may take time to develop, but you build bonds through shared ideas and open dialogue. Health-wise, your nervous system may be sensitive. Too much screen time or overstimulation can lead to anxiety or restlessness. Regular movement, mindfulness, and time away from technology can help calm your mind. Financially, this placement brings cleverness and versatility. You may earn in multiple ways, or turn skills like writing or speaking into income. Be mindful of spreading your energy too thin. Focus can be just as valuable as flexibility. When Mercury in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a clear sign to listen, learn, speak, or share. Something important may need to be communicated, or perhaps you're being asked to seek new information before making a decision. It's also a reminder your thoughts are powerful. The way you speak to others and to yourself shapes your reality. So ask yourself, what am I curious about right now? What conversation or idea is ready to move me forward? Because Mercury in Gemini doesn't wait in silence. It asks, answers, explores, and brings life to every thought it touches. Today we explore a light, playful, and mentally stimulating placement. Venus in Gemini, or in the third house. Venus is the planet of love, beauty, pleasure, and value. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is curious, witty, and social. The third house governs communication, learning, and our day-to-day interactions. When Venus lands here, love becomes a conversation, beauty is found in variety, and connection begins in the mind. This placement gives you a charming, flirtatious energy. You're likely drawn to clever people, interesting conversations, and light-hearted fun. In relationships, mental compatibility is essential. If someone can't keep up with your thoughts or make you laugh, you'll lose interest quickly. You're affectionate, but not always consistent. Your heart wants room to explore, discover, and stay curious. You may express love through words, texts, letters, jokes, or playful banter. You're likely to enjoy having multiple social connections and might feel happiest when surrounded by people who stimulate your mind. In career, this placement favors work that involves communication, media, writing, teaching, or anything where versatility and sociability are assets. You're often creative, expressive, and naturally good at marketing or connecting people. Financially, Venus in Gemini or the third house may indicate multiple income streams or a talent for turning communication skills into money. You may also enjoy spending on books, technology, short trips, or anything that feeds your mind and social life. In health, your emotional well-being is closely tied to your need for mental stimulation. If your environment feels dull or too repetitive, you may feel disconnected or restless. Balance comes from variety, social connection, and movement, especially short walks, chats with friends, or learning something new. When Venus in Gemini or the third house shows up in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to lighten the energy, explore, connect, communicate. Let love be fun, not forced. It may also point to a social opportunity or a new connection that starts through conversation or shared interests. So ask yourself, am I giving myself space to enjoy love, learning, and connection in a playful way? Where might curiosity lead to deeper joy? Because Venus in Gemini teaches that love isn't just about passion, it's about laughter, learning, and staying interested. And when your heart is free to think, explore, and talk, it truly shines. Today we explore an emotionally curious and mentally agile placement. The moon in Gemini, or in the third house. The moon governs your inner world, emotions, instincts, needs, and how you nurture and feel safe. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is quick thinking, sociable, and adaptable. The third house echoes this energy. It governs communication, learning, siblings, and the mind's everyday workings. When the moon lands here, emotions take on a thoughtful, expressive, and ever-changing tone. This placement creates someone who feels through thinking. You process emotions by talking them out, writing them down, or mentally analysing them. Silence can feel uncomfortable. You need dialogue, stimulation, and connection to stay emotionally balanced. Your moods may shift quickly, but you rarely stay down for long. Curiosity lifts you. You're emotionally nourished by conversation, storytelling, humour, and learning. You may feel a strong bond with siblings or people from your early environment. Talking things through is not optional for you. It's essential to how you make sense of yourself. In relationships, you're affectionate, playful, and expressive. You may struggle with emotional depth or stillness at times, preferring to keep things light and moving. But when someone listens, engages, and shares ideas with you, you open up in beautiful ways. In career, this placement favours writing, speaking, teaching, journalism, or any role that allows you to connect ideas with people. You need variety, mental stimulation, and the freedom to explore different perspectives. Health-wise, your emotional and mental well-being are deeply connected. When your mind is overstimulated, your emotions can scatter. Gentle grounding practices, short walks, journaling, and regular social interaction all support emotional clarity. Financially, the moon here may not crave massive wealth, but values having enough to enjoy life, learn, travel, and share with others. You may have changing financial moods, feeling secure one day, uncertain the next. So building steady habits can help anchor you. When the moon in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to speak your feelings. There may be something you need to express, or something you've been trying to figure out with your heart and mind. It's also a nudge to connect with those who make you feel seen through shared words, laughter, or stories. So ask yourself, am I allowing myself to communicate what I feel? Who truly hears me? Because the moon in Gemini teaches that emotions don't always come out through tears. Sometimes they come out through words. And when you speak from the heart, you find the connection your soul's been craving. Today we turn our attention to a soul path centered on connection, communication, and curiosity. The North Node in Gemini, or in the third house. The North Node represents your spiritual direction in this lifetime. The qualities and experiences your soul is here to learn, develop, and embody. Gemini in the third house are all about mental agility, communication, everyday learning, and local connection. With this placement, your journey is about becoming the seeker, not the sage, engaged, not detached. This placement asks you to let go of the South Node tendencies, which in this case lie in Sagittarius or the ninth house. That suggests a karmic comfort zone rooted in big picture thinking, strong beliefs, or always trying to find ultimate answers. You may come into this life feeling like you need to be right or have all the wisdom, but your growth lies in asking questions, not just giving answers. You're here to learn to listen, share, speak, and stay present with the small things. Everyday interactions, conversations, facts, and local experiences. Life isn't meant to be a grand theory with this placement. It's meant to be lived, discussed, and discovered one detail at a time. In relationships, this North Node asks you to develop deeper curiosity about others. Rather than assuming or philosophizing, you're meant to engage, ask, and exchange. Siblings, neighbours, and your immediate environment may play key roles in your growth. Career-wise, this path favours writing, teaching, media, communication, or any work that allows for flexibility and social connection. It's not about mastering one grand idea, but about making meaningful connections, gathering insight, and sharing information in relatable ways. You may be naturally restless, drawn to movement, short journeys, and variety. That's part of your path. You're meant to stay open to life's changing pace and to explore different ways of thinking without clinging to a single belief system. When the North Node in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a sign that your growth lies in learning, listening, and opening up. Life is trying to teach you something new, not through a dramatic event, but through the people, words, and moments right in front of you. So ask yourself, am I staying curious or clinging to what I think I know? What conversations have I been avoiding, and what could I learn by leaning in? because the North Node in Gemini teaches us that wisdom isn't always found in far-off places. Sometimes it's in the next sentence, the next question, or the next person you're brave enough to talk to. Today we explore a karmic pattern built around communication, curiosity, and mental activity. The South Node in Gemini, or in the third house. The South Node represents your past life habits or early life tendencies, what feels familiar and easy, but may hold you back if overused. Gemini in the third house are about the mind, speech, information, and local day-to-day experiences. With this placement, the soul has already mastered the art of thinking, talking, and gathering knowledge. Now it's time to move into deeper understanding. You may come into this life with strong communication skills, a quick mind, and a natural talent for connecting ideas. You likely enjoy learning, discussing, and staying mentally engaged. But the challenge? Too much focus on surface-level facts, overthinking, or staying in busy brain mode to avoid depth. This placement can lead to restlessness, scattered attention, or a tendency to stay in familiar environments, mentally or physically. You might find comfort in being the messenger, the multitasker, or the curious observer, but your soul's growth lies in stepping back, going deeper, and embracing wisdom over information. Your North Node, in Sagittarius or the ninth house, calls you toward a broader, more meaningful path, to seek truth, develop faith, and move beyond facts into belief, purpose, and inner knowing. You're being asked to zoom out, trust your intuition, and explore life through experience, not just conversation. In relationships, this can mean letting go of gossip, overanalysis, or intellectual detachment, and instead embracing honesty, adventure, and philosophical connection. You're learning to live what you know, not just talk about it. In career, you may have a natural talent for teaching, writing, or communication, but you're meant to evolve into sharing deeper wisdom. You're not here to just relay what others say. You're here to form your own worldview and share it boldly. When the South Node in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a signal to move beyond the noise. You might be stuck in details, overthinking, or avoiding a leap of faith. The message: it's time to go beyond what's familiar and embrace a bigger truth. So ask yourself, am I chasing facts to avoid meaning? What belief journey or truth am I ready to explore, even if I can't explain it yet? Because the South Node in Gemini teaches that the mind is brilliant, but it's not the whole story. Your soul is ready to stop skimming the surface and dive into the deeper waters of wisdom. Today we're looking at a placement that fuels action through words, ideas, and mental agility. Mars in Gemini, or in the third house. Mars is the planet of drive, willpower, passion, and how we go after what we want. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is quick thinking, versatile, and endlessly curious. The third house governs communication, learning, short travel, and daily interactions. When Mars lands here, energy flows into speech, thought, and connection, sometimes faster than you can keep up with. This is the debater, the persuader, the mental sprinter. You act on ideas quickly, often speaking or deciding in the moment. Your words can be sharp and impactful, and when motivated, you can convince almost anyone to see your point of view. But patience isn't always your strong suit. If something feels slow or stagnant, you're on to the next challenge. In relationships, you bring playfulness, wit, and banter. You're attracted to minds as much as bodies. And mental stimulation is key to keeping your passion alive. Heated discussions can excite you, though it's worth watching for arguments that arise just to keep things interesting. In career, this placement favours roles in media, writing, sales, teaching, or anything that involves fast thinking and adaptability. You work best with variety and movement, and may juggle multiple projects at once. Health-wise, nervous tension can be an issue, especially if you're overcommitting mentally. Physical movement, especially short bursts like walks, cycling, or sports, can help release mental energy. Financially, you're resourceful and quick to spot opportunities, though you may need to guard against impulsive decisions. Mars here thrives when your actions are backed by a clear plan, not just a quick idea. When Mars in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a nudge to speak up, take action, and move forward through communication. The answer you're seeking may come from a conversation, a short journey, or a piece of information that lights a fire under you. So ask yourself, am I using my words to build what I want, or scattering my energy? And what action can I take today to turn an idea into reality? Because Mars in Gemini teaches that action doesn't always start with the body. Sometimes it starts with a single well-aimed word. Today, we explore a placement that thrives on learning, connecting, and expanding through ideas. Jupiter in Gemini, or in the third house. Jupiter is the planet of growth, wisdom, opportunity, and faith. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is curious, adaptable, and endlessly communicative. The third house shares these themes. It rules the mind, speech, local environment, and everyday exchanges. When Jupiter lands here, your world grows every time you ask a question, share a thought, or make a connection. This placement brings a love of variety and exploration, especially through the mind. You may have a gift for language, storytelling, teaching, or connecting people. Opportunities often arrive through your network. A conversation, a casual meeting, or a local connection can open surprising doors. Travel, especially short trips, can also bring luck and learning. You're optimistic about ideas and see knowledge as something to be shared. You might collect facts and experiences like treasures, weaving them into wisdom that inspires others. But Jupiter here can also scatter your focus. Wanting to know everything at once can mean not going deep enough into one subject. In relationships, you're drawn to people who stimulate your mind and broaden your horizons. Communication is a core part of love for you, and shared laughter or learning often bonds you more than grand romantic gestures. In career, this placement favours teaching, writing, journalism, sales, broadcasting, or anything that lets you share information widely. You can also succeed in roles that involve connecting communities or working across different areas of knowledge. Health-wise, your mental well-being is closely linked to your mood. Too much routine can dull your spark. You need variety, social engagement, and mental stimulation to stay energized. Financially, Jupiter here can bring gains through networking, communication work, or multiple income streams. But it's important to avoid overconfidence in quick ideas. Long-term success comes when you channel your enthusiasm into focused action. When Jupiter in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a sign to say yes to learning, conversation, and connection. Growth is available right now through sharing ideas, asking questions, and staying open to what others can teach you. So ask yourself, who could I learn from today? And where might one conversation take me? Because Jupiter in Gemini reminds us that sometimes the biggest opportunities arrive in small everyday moments, and a single exchange can open a much bigger world. Today, we explore a placement that blends discipline with communication. Saturn in Gemini, or in the third house. Saturn is the planet of structure, responsibility, and long-term mastery. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is quick, curious, and talkative. The third house governs the mind, communication, learning, and local connections. When Saturn lands here, the mind becomes focused, serious, and built for depth over speed. This placement often indicates a thoughtful communicator. You may take your time to form ideas, valuing accuracy and clarity over quick responses. Early in life, there may have been challenges with communication, perhaps shyness, self-doubt, or a feeling of not being heard. But with time, you develop a strong, authoritative voice that others respect. Saturn in Gemini, or the third house, thrives in structured learning. You may excel in teaching, research, writing, or any field where precision and organisation matter. Patience and persistence turn your words into tools of lasting impact. In relationships, you value meaningful conversations over small talk. You may be selective about who you open up to, but when you trust someone, your words carry weight. You're learning to express yourself with confidence, not just correctness. Health-wise, this placement can indicate tension in the shoulders, neck, or hands, often from mental strain or overwork. Regular movement and mindful breaks help maintain balance. Financially, Saturn here can bring stability through communication-based careers or from careful, well-researched decisions. You're unlikely to gamble with resources. You prefer to plan and build slowly. When Saturn in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a call to speak with purpose. Your words matter, but they may also be carrying unnecessary weight. This is a time to clarify your message. Commit to learning something fully, or have the conversation you've been putting off. So ask yourself, am I holding back my voice out of fear, or am I speaking with the intention to build something lasting? Because Saturn in Gemini teaches that the right words, spoken at the right time, can shape not just minds, but entire futures. Today we explore a placement that electrifies the mind and transforms the way you connect. Uranus in Gemini, or in the third house. Uranus is the planet of innovation, disruption, and awakening. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is curious, fast-moving, and adaptable. The third house governs communication, learning, and everyday interactions. When Uranus lands here, your thoughts and words become sparks, quick, original, and often ahead of their time. This placement often brings flashes of insight and unconventional thinking. You may process information rapidly, jumping from idea to idea in ways that surprise others. There's a restless mental energy here. You're wired for variety, experimentation, and breaking away from traditional thought patterns. Technology, alternative education, or unusual communication methods may play a big role in your life. In relationships, you're drawn to people who stimulate your mind and encourage freedom of thought. You may challenge others' perspectives, sometimes playfully, sometimes radically, and you value connections that allow you to speak your truth without censorship. In career, this placement suits roles in technology, media, activism, education reform, or anything that involves innovative communication. You might also excel at connecting people across unconventional networks or introducing fresh ideas into old systems. Health-wise, Uranus here can bring sudden shifts in mental energy, bursts of focus followed by restlessness. Your nervous system may be sensitive, so grounding practices and a flexible routine are essential. Financially, income might come through unique or unpredictable avenues, perhaps multiple side projects, tech-related work, or sudden opportunities. You may resist rigid financial structures, preferring flexibility. When Uranus in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a sign that your mind is ready for a breakthrough. A new idea, conversation, or piece of information could change everything, but it might also require you to step away from old beliefs. So ask yourself, what conversation or idea could shift my entire perspective? And am I willing to think differently to grow? Because Uranus in Gemini teaches that freedom begins in the mind, and once your thinking changes, the whole world opens in ways you never imagined. Today we explore a placement that blends imagination with communication, Neptune in Gemini, or in the third house. Neptune is the planet of dreams, spirituality, intuition, and illusion. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is curious, adaptable, and expressive. The third house governs thinking, learning, speaking, and everyday exchanges. When Neptune lands here, the mind becomes a channel for inspiration, empathy, and creative vision, but also for confusion if boundaries aren't clear. This placement often gives you a poetic or artistic way with words. You might be a natural storyteller, able to weave emotion and imagery into everything you say or write. Your intuition colours your communication. You can often sense what others are feeling before they speak. You may be drawn to spiritual studies, symbolic thinking, or work that uses imagination to teach and connect. The challenge with Neptune here is clarity. You might be prone to daydreaming, distraction, or misinterpretation, both in what you say and what you hear. You may idealize ideas or people, only to be disillusioned later. Staying grounded and fact-checking information helps balance your intuitive flow. In relationships, you may form strong mental and emotional bonds, sometimes blurring the line between fantasy and reality. You're a compassionate listener, but you may need to set boundaries to avoid taking on others' emotional weight. In career, this placement favours writing, music, art, film, spiritual teaching, or anything that communicates beauty and meaning. You may also excel in fields involving healing through words or guiding others with empathy. Health-wise, Neptune here can heighten sensitivity in the nervous system. Too much mental noise or information overload can be draining, so quiet time and grounding activities are essential. Financially, this placement suggests that income could come through creative or compassionate work, but it may fluctuate. Being realistic and organised around money helps counter Neptune's more idealistic tendencies. When Neptune in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a call to listen to your intuition, but also to check the facts. A message may be coming your way that's inspiring, but it's important to make sure it's grounded in truth. So ask yourself, am I hearing what's really being said, or what I wish were true? How can I use my voice to inspire while staying clear? Because Neptune in Gemini teaches that words can be magic, and when you speak with both heart and clarity, they can change the way people see the world. Today we explore a placement that gives words weight and thoughts power. Pluto in Gemini, or in the third house. Pluto is the planet of transformation, intensity, and deep truth. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is curious, adaptable, and communicative. The third house rules the mind, speech, learning, and everyday exchanges. When Pluto lands here, communication becomes a tool for change, influence, and uncovering what lies beneath the surface. This placement often brings a penetrating mind. You don't just skim over facts, you dig until you uncover the truth. Conversations with you can be intense, thought-provoking, and sometimes challenging, because you naturally push past superficial chatter into deeper territory. Words for you are never just filler. They're a way to transform thinking, both your own and others. You may have experienced power struggles or pivotal events connected to siblings, school, or early communication. These moments often shape how you use your voice, sometimes making you cautious, other times making you fiercely outspoken. In relationships, you value honesty and depth in dialogue. You're not afraid of difficult conversations, but you may need to be mindful of using words too forcefully or holding on to mental grudges. In career, Pluto here can excel in research, investigative journalism, psychology, education reform, or anything where information is used to uncover truth or create change. You have a knack for spotting hidden patterns and can be a powerful strategist. Health-wise, mental tension can be a challenge. Your thoughts may run deep and intense, so finding outlets for mental release, writing, problem-solving, or even therapy can be transformative. Financially, this placement can bring resourcefulness in negotiations, contracts, or deals. You may have a talent for influencing others' decisions through persuasive communication. When Pluto in Gemini or the third house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message that a conversation, piece of information, or realization could transform everything. It may be time to speak a truth you've been holding back, or to listen for the truth beneath someone else's words. So ask yourself, am I using my voice to heal and empower, or to control? What truth is ready to come to light? Because Pluto in Gemini teaches that ideas have power, and when they're spoken with depth, courage, and intention, they can change not only minds, but entire lives.